When airplanes get very old, do they, like a lot of old soldiers, just fade and die away? Well, unfortunately, some of them do, but a lot of them end up in wonderful museums, aviation museums around the world, like this spectacular museum in Torrance, California. And I'm sitting in what kind of aircraft?
Northrop F5.
And this incredible plane could go how many miles an hour?
1.5 times the speed of sound, about 1,000 miles an hour.
And I must tell you, sitting here in the cockpit, it is tiny and a real sense of, I guess, claustrophobia. But this is a fascinating museum, and I urge you to come visit it at your earliest opportunity. Okay, we're talking with Hi Joseph, and hi, you are the chief docent. Hi, I see behind us we have a really classic aircraft. This airplane here, the big one, what is that?
That's the North American F-86 Saberjet. That's the very first swept-wing aircraft that was given the Air Force during the Korean War, and it became the MiG killer. Our pilots with that aircraft gained air superiority over the MiG-15 10-1. Although the MiG flew faster, could turn tighter, and was more heavily armed, our pilots were better trained.
And this model here, this Navy plane off the USS Kitty Hawk, what is that?
That's the F-18, the F-A-18.
And all this stuff hanging from the ceiling, what are some of the most, this huge thing here, what is that?
This aircraft standing up here is the SierraOne. We call it Sierra Sioux. It was actually built on this field, right across the main runway in a place called Acme Aviation. And it's not the same Acme that the Roadrunner uses. Okay, this aircraft was built by, or designed by, two of Northrop's engineers in their spare time. They wanted to see if they could design a new type of racing plane, and they did. The pilot sat in the cockpit with a 4-cylinder engine right behind him, long shaft going to the tail, and if you look at the tail, you see it's Y-shaped.
Oh, yeah.
And they figured with that shaped tail, they could make real tight turns around the pylons, and it worked. One gentleman who was an aircraft builder saw this aircraft in flight, and he thought that tail was fantastic, so his first business plane was built with the exact same tail. His name was Lear.
And all these models here, which are absolutely fascinating, do people give those to you? Do you make them? How do they come into your possession?
They, believe it or not, are donations from various individuals and groups. And for example, here's Howard Hughes' Spruce Goose. And you'll remember it was called the Spruce Goose. That was a joke by one of the reporters, because when they found out that the aircraft was built out of plywood, he said, "Oh, that's a Spruce Goose." Well, Howard Hughes hated that name because this was the Hercules. But anyway, I'm very fortunate because I was born and raised in Los Angeles. And one morning, it was the 2nd of February in 1947, my buddy and I, we got on our bikes and we rode through the bean fields and the oil fields to sit up on the hill overlooking the harbor in Long Beach. And we were eating our lunch, and we heard this tremendous roar, and we looked down, and here comes this big white aircraft on the water, and it took off about 20 feet over the water, and then it landed. That was the first and only flight.
And you saw it?
And we saw it.
Okay. Right. This is a huge plane when you stand up close to it. So first, what is this plane on the left?
This is the YF-17, Northrop YF-17, the Cobra, which was the prototype for the F-18. Back in the late 60s, this aircraft flew against the F-16 in a contest, and the Air Force chose the F-16. But the Navy kept looking at the 17 and said, "We like this baby. Can you beef it up so it can take off and land on a carrier?" And lo and behold, that's how you got the F-18.
Was this a one or two person crew?
One person, one pilot.
And this huge plane that we're standing next to over here, what is that?
This is the F14 Tomcat, the famous aircraft that Tom Cruise was supposed to fly in Top Gun.
Oh, yeah.
And right now, you'll just notice its wings are full back, in the delta position. Actually, those wings are straight out for takeoff and landing, but as it speeds up and gains speed, those wings go back into the delta position. So supersonic flight. This is a two-pilot aircraft, a pilot in the front seat and the radar observer in the rear.
And the speed again of this?
This aircraft flew at about 1,150 miles an hour.
And this plane that is right behind us here, that looks like it's having a tooth job or something done. What is all that stuff there?
Well, that's the 20 millimeter cannon that you see there. This aircraft has everything in it except the 220 millimeter cannon, because you can't have them on a civilian field. This is a Northrop F5. That's an actual flying, radio-controlled flying model. That's a Ryan-produced helicopter that is shaped and painted up like a Russian attack helicopter, the Hind. And it was used to train radar artillery.
So that flew?
Yes, that's radio-controlled. It's a quarter scale, meaning that 1/4 inch equals a foot.
And this funny-looking thing here that says Army, what a weird-looking thing that is.
That's one of your very first unmanned air systems. It's a drone. It carried a camera, and it was used back in 1944 for reconnaissance. And as it went over the enemy territory, once it landed, they pulled out the film, developed it, and they could see where the enemy was hiding.
This really funny-looking thing behind us, it looks, I can't even describe it. What is it? I mean, it looks like a lot of bubbles.
That may be the very last flying wing that was built by Jack Northrop. During the Second World War, in 1943 and 44, we were going to build our answer to the German V-1 buzz bomb. This is the prototype. It's a glider. You notice it has a pilot seat and controls, but no engines. Its wing is shaped like a bat wing. That's why it was called the Bat.
When I think about the beginning of aviation, Orville and Wilbur Wright, and I look at this aircraft, the shape is extraordinary. I mean, tell us a little bit about it and what's it called?
This is the Northrop YF23. This is quite an aircraft.
YF standing for what?
Well, it's experimental at that point, as all aircraft are when they start. And the F, of course, is for fighter. This was going to be the advanced technical fighter.
And how many of these were built?
Just 2.
And how fast could this go?
We don't really know, because that's still under security attachment. But we figure about twice the speed of sound.
I happen to be a real James Bond fan, and this thing that we're standing by somehow, well, it looks a little bit familiar. Am I correct in thinking that?
Yes, you are. If you remember the motion picture Octopussy with Roger Moore's 007, remember the little jet he flew at the start of the movie? This is a BD-5, same aircraft that he flew, only this aircraft has a two-cylinder engine with a prop in the rear.
So he really flew. I mean, this plane can fly?
This plane did fly, yes. What we did is we restored this aircraft and we painted it up in the same colors as the one in the movie. It has a little two-cylinder engine. It flies about 200 miles an hour. The jet model flies at about 350 miles an hour.
Hi, thank you very much for a really interesting tour.
You're very welcome, and thank you for coming to the Western Museum of Flight.
So next time you're wondering what to do, come on down to the Western Museum of Flight. It's absolutely fascinating. And until next time, I'm John Clayton. Thanks for watching, and I hope you, yes you, will be aboard for our next trip.